Hello, my name is Shin, and I'm here to talk about how Japanese music influenced Korean music. So, when it comes to Korean music, there's just much more than just K-pop idols. There's music genres like trot or ballad that is pretty popular in Korea. So, as a Korean myself, I grew up listening to those kind of songs. And about 3 years ago, when I got interested in Japanese music, I was surprised to find just how similar the atmosphere, the vibe actually is. Like, just listen to this. So, it's a remake. And these songs were both popular in Korea and Japan. So, what this tells us is that the musical vibe, atmosphere of both countries, Korea and Japan, is pretty similar. So, why? Why did that even happen? So, we can trace it all back to the Japanese colonial period. So, during Japanese colonial period, it was painful and all this kind of awful stuff happened. But it is also true that Japanese culture came into Korea, and actually a lot of them. And one of them was music. And one of the ways that Japanese colonized Korea was through education and music. There's this music genre called changa. And changa is basically Western Christian songs just with Korean lyrics. And it was there in Korea even before the colonial period. But during the colonial rule, changa slowly started to talk about independence. So, do you think Japanese government would just let it slide? No, they wanted to restrict it somehow. So one of the ways they did this was by teaching Korean students about this new subject called changa and music. So in changa and music, they taught changa and Japanese music with Korean lyrics to the Korean students. And the subjects was limited to like talking about natural beauty or heroes or loyal subjects to the empire. So because these were all written and mostly written in Korean, you can see how this kind of education would have affected Korean students and Korean music in the future. So in Korean folk songs, they usually used a rhythm like 자진몰이 장단 or 국거리 장단. So and all of them mostly had 12 to 8 type signature with 3-beat method. So it mostly goes like this. And for example, 자진몰이 장단 goes like this. But when it comes to Japanese songs or Japanese traditional songs, they usually use beats with 2 to 4 time signature or 4 to 4 time signature with 2 or 4 beat method. So it sometimes sounds like this. Yeah, it's a little bit different from 자진몰이 장단. And it's also true that these kind of beats cannot be used to express 자진몰이 장단 or Korean folk song rhythms. So after these kind of Japanese education to Korean students and Korean music industry start to use less of these kind of 자진몰이 장단 and start to use more of these kind of Japanese rhythms with 2-beat or 4-beat method. And one of the music genres that Japanese government taught Korean students was 군가 or military anthems. So just listen to this.
汽笛の響き勇ましく馬鹿を後に漕ぎ出て蹴破る荒波百回り
So this is the original Japanese military anthem. And this was taught to Korean students this way.
학도야 학도야 청년학도야 벽상의 괴종을 들어보아라.
Okay, so it did have different meanings in their lyrics. But it is true that these kind of Japanese military anthems gave a lot of musical influence to Korean music. And this was seen apparent later during colonization when the Koreans are talking about independence with independence military anthems, but the song it actually is originally Japanese songs. So like it went to the point where Japanese people is listening to these kind of independence songs and they're like, wait, this is our song. So Koreans are singing independence from Japan with Japanese songs. And that just shows how effective Japanese use of music as part of its colonization actually was. But this kind of Japanese education was not the only thing that affected Korean music. So there's this music genre called yuhenga, or trendy or popular music. And it was really popular during the colonization, especially among Korean people. So, and since this kind of yuhenga was mostly influenced from enka, a Japanese musical genre, you might be thinking that Japanese government forced it and that's the reason why it got just so popular. But it is not. Korean folk music was already on its decline even before the colonization even started. So one of the reasons is because Korean folk song didn't have that good image. Like most of it was performed by kangdae or street performers, and they were mostly beggars and these kind of things. So Korean folk songs didn't have that good image. But when these kind of Japanese music like enka or yuhenga came into Korea, people were surprised by the atmosphere, like the stylist things, with new kind of culture, with, I don't know, something that looks good. So it got pretty popular among Korean people. And there's multiple people who talks about how they're disgusted by just how Koreans are willing to take in Japanese culture. So that's one of the reasons why Korean, like yuhenga or Japanese-inspired music got so popular. And it went to the point where Japanese scholars and Korean scholars couldn't find more of these Korean folk songs because, it was already on its decline. So, what you just heard is Japanese enka. And you can see that it's pretty similar to the Korean trot that we know. It is because Japanese enka, which kind of like made yuhenga, later made genres like trot or shingayo. So the aspects of enka is still present in the Korean trot that we know today. So for example, just look at the scale. So this is the normal scale that we all use. Right? But in Japanese enka, they usually use the scale called Yonanoki scale. So the reason is because back in the days, Korea, China, and Japan all used some kind of pentatonic scale. But during the Western influence, Japanese wanted to represent their own traditional pentatonic scale into these kind of Western scales. And that's when this kind of Yonanoki scale was made. So just hear this. This is the major version of Yonanoki scale. And this is the minor version of it. So this kind of Yonanoki scale was used a lot in enkas and later in Korean trots. So you can basically use this scale to make the Korean trot, basically. So I've tried making this for the last 30 minutes, and it's quite hard because this is a genre that I don't know much about, but I've tried to make it. So just listen to this for a second. So I hope that sounded a bit like trot, but it is still true that trot still uses Yonanoki scale. So when I was writing this, I was thinking of something like that. But whatever, I hope you got the message that trot is a lot influenced by Japanese culture. After independence, our Korean government decided to ban all Japanese media. But what this allowed is that it allowed Korean artists to just copy Japanese music and nobody would know about it. And even excluding that, because yuenga was just so popular, Japanese influence to Korean music persisted. So there was a lot of tries to get out of that, like Shin Minyo or Kanzankayo, which stated that it did not get influence from Japan, but it later did, and it just became this one genre called trot. So, and in the 80s and 90s, ballad, for example from like ex-Japan or 안전지대, gave a lot of influence to Korean ballads. That's how the ballads and trot that we know today has been made. After hearing about this, you might be thinking that Japanese influenced Korean music and it is this just one-way influence. But it is not. Actually, one of the founding fathers of Enka basically said that he got inspired by Korean music. And with the recent rise of K-pop, I think this just shows that the cultural relationship between two countries is much more complex and dynamic than what it seemed at the first glance. So, Japanese music and Korean music are both pretty great. So why don't you try both of them? Thank you for listening.